Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm still trying to.
Yeah, put on your first that's what you just tell me this. Put on
Sometimes I can.
All right, let's get started, please. Roll call. Fred Davis. Dekalb.
Yes.
Free Malak.
Here.
Victoria Newport. Here. Ellerkin Hernandez. Here. Rick Smith. Howard Solomon.
Sure.
Before we do the Pledge of Allegiance today, I just want to make sure everybody knows who, if you want to make a comment tonight, you need to do it during public comment. We won't let any speakers from the audience speak during board correspondence. So please fill out a card if you do want to speak tonight. Okay, now if we can rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have public participation. Members of the public who wish to speak to the board should complete a request card prior to the meeting. This section of the meeting will be reserved for comments from the public. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes, and criticism of individuals is not recorded. Okay, first we have Bernice Walton, and she wants to speak on diversity assessment plan.
Do you want me to stand here or?
There's fine if you want to come up front, whatever works.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here this evening as a parent and as a taxpayer and as someone that lives in Dekalb. I know many of you probably know me as a Chief Diversity Officer from NIU, but tonight I'm not here for that. I'm here as a parent because I'm concerned about my child and every other child that is part of District 428. Every child deserves to learn. Every child deserves to have a quality education. And I know personally, growing up, that I didn't always have that opportunity. Free of stereotyping, racial profiling, being minimized, or feeling discouraged. 30 years later, I expect that my child, who is in kindergarten, would not have to experience what I experienced, and I don't think any parent would want that for their child. So I stand here tonight to say that it is absolutely imperative that we look at passing and in favor of the diversity plan, the assessment plan, because every child now in 2017 deserves not to go through what I went through when my parents moved me to a small town similar to Dekalb. It wasn't until I was 39 years old that anyone in my educational career even told me that I was smart, or even that I saw someone that looked like me in the classroom teaching me. I think my child and every other child deserves that same right and that same opportunity. So I ask you tonight to consider that the way that we move that forward is through being equity-minded and not deficit-minded. And equity-mindedness, according to the Center for Urban Education from University of California, basically says that institutions should really look at the barriers that are sometimes systematically in place and practices and policies that have been put in place that hinder students' education in a supportive environment. And instead, what happens in many school districts and even in higher education, what is wrong with the student? That student is lazy, that student doesn't come to class, that student's parent doesn't care, that student doesn't know how to learn. Every student knows how to learn and should be afforded that opportunity. If we as educators take the time to really look at the things that we are doing to really look at the barriers and the practices and the policies that we have historically put in place in educational institutions, I guarantee you that you can transform the lives of students if you give them that opportunity. And I'm asking you tonight to utilize that plan to really transform this school district so that my child and every other child does not have to experience what I experienced 35 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Samantha McDavid on holiday parties.
I would like to stand as a parent in solidarity with the elementary administration that supports celebrations that are not tied to specific holidays. I think it is the most inclusive way to provide social settings based in an educational environment. And that is all I have to say.
Thank you. Next, we have board committee reports and correspondence. Mrs. Commission. Howard, did you want to start? Okay.
I want to report on the Social Justice Committee meeting at Tyler School on November 11th. I was there at that meeting and heard quite an earful. It definitely spoke very much in favor, as Ms. Etchell mentioned, that of following through on the diversity plan that we have and following through with using the Social Justice Committee, whose members have been working on a plan already, to give them the opportunity to continue to follow the guidance of Drs. Cohen and Adams, so that they can actually stay going. We've taken steps forward that other members of the board may not know about, and it would be kind of silly and foolish to go backwards on what it is that's already been done. The group heard, that I was there, heard a review of a new book called The Hate You Give. A unit of this book is likely to be incorporated into the high school freshman English and humanities classes with appropriate pre-warnings related to both language and content. So we're moving into an area where we're actually addressing items that may be controversial, and there may be a few folks who are not as progressive as the school district, who may run into some sense of wanting to hold back. Work is also going on related to creation of a social justice activity using a TED Talk video on implicit bias. This will use data that has already been collected in the existing diversity study that Cohen and Adams produced for us. The feeling among faculty members and parents is that the collected data is strong enough to support classroom activity. So we're working with good stuff. And it also increases the relevance by being exactly about the district that the students working in are living in. There was considerable consternation about the board's tendency to question the competency of our researchers, particularly after the implementation of guidance had been agreed upon in a contract that was awarded through and agreed upon by the board in November of 2016. The Social Justice Committee is vested in this diversity plan, and they show up voluntarily. Nobody's getting any extra FTEs or anything that's adding into their pockets. This is people who are concerned about how our community grows and what it's doing, and they're putting their hearts into it. I just can do nothing more than applaud them. I was also shown that our website homepage no longer displays the mission of the district, that it's now been moved under board with new wording that has only been approved by the board and not by all stakeholders of the district. And eventually, I would like to introduce a resolution that we reevaluate this with stakeholders of the district, and we look at things. Not to say that there are bad things about what was decided, but people ought to be, a larger, broader group of people than simply the board ought to be invited into the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Anybody else?
Yeah, I actually want to report out on two things. I was able to attend the PBIS celebration on the 31st. That was held at Jefferson. I was invited to Little John. Unfortunately, I couldn't be at both places. But I will speak on behalf of both. Both pretty much the same in the sense that PBIS now is very inclusive of every, I mean, not that it wasn't, but it's moving towards inclusive practices while celebrating and promoting many things about the child or the whole child. And while being at Jefferson, you know, I really had never been to the, as a parent, to the PBIS celebrations that they now hold. And I can honestly tell you that I walked out of there just so amazed with how amazing it's been structured. All the hard work that not just our educators, which they do a large majority of the work, but our parents and our PTA put together for the PBIS celebration. You know, going down the halls and just hearing every kid, it was a much different feeling from the celebrations. The celebrations were held in the classroom. These were held in the multi-purpose room, in the library, in the gym. So it was a whole different, it was a more like a whole district, whole classroom and whole building approach so that the kids aren't necessarily in one room and only experiencing that one thing, but rather a broader experience. So they called it Chemistry Day, Chemistry Party. And what they did is that Jefferson was able to get a STEM grant, and it was really, really amazing to see how the kids just walked around. They experienced hands-on science for one. It was tied to the curriculum, but it was also enjoyable because it wasn't the structured environment that you have in the classroom. It was more where the parents led, the PTA led, and the kids all felt like they were a part of something. No one felt excluded. No one felt like they weren't a part of it. Yeah, some kids talked about Halloween, other kids talked about fall, but at the end, they drew back on the similarities that they were, you know, practicing science together. I actually left there and I felt so good. I hadn't been in elementary school in a while with that many kids. So I felt very grateful for all the work that has been put in. I mean, it's extensive work, and I think we should applaud all the work that our teachers are doing, that our parents are doing, that our admin are doing, and our PTA. And I, for one, want to thank all of you for making that possible. If you're here, if you're involved in it to some degree, you know, that to me says a lot. So there's a lot of thought put into our celebrations so that they're inclusive, so that every child parades around the halls feeling excited to be in school. And I think that's commendable work. I just thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. The second thing, I was able to go to a concert for the orchestra at the high school. My goodness, it was, and Mr. Cohen was there. I'm sorry, Cohen. James Horn was there. And he was in the back, right? And I don't know if he's required to be there, but I thought it was amazing. He's sitting in the back observing 6th grade all the way to 12th grade. And honestly, we know that orchestra teacher travels from building to building, but the work that was done, I mean, the kids from 6th grade all the way to 12th grade, that was amazing. That work, just to see those kids exploring music the way they did, and you know, to know that a teacher who is somewhat stretched thin can do all that magnificent work with different ages and different groups, you know, different groups of students. I left there feeling like, oh my goodness, this teacher is doing so much work for so many different students, and her work is commendable. The work of the principal, you know, being there supportive of all those students to just assist and help, and the students feeling so proud of their work and their efforts. So thank you guys from the bottom of my heart.
I went to the last game, or part of the last game, and I think that we should give congratulations to the football team for making it as far as they did. They did a stupendous job, and it's a shame that we didn't take it all home, but we certainly put it all on the field. It was really a wonderful, wonderful experience to follow them throughout this season. So I just want to say that for me, and I think that we all share that same appreciation for the amount of effort and hard work that went to get us to where we were. And the team certainly put a huge amount of effort into it. They're all commended.
I was at Little John's Halloween, or the 31st, the fun fair they had, and that was a great time. The kids really enjoyed it. I was in one of the rooms where they continued to earn their PBIS bucks, and you could tell the steady stream of them coming through wanting to win more so they could go buy stuff with it. So they were super excited about that. And then at Brooks, they did a kind of a fitness day, and it was NIU students came in and really ran the whole thing. It was really amazing seeing these, maybe freshman, sophomore in college working with these kids and with the PE and stuff. And Brooke, I still think I beat you in the pumpkin race. So it was great. So really good activities on the 31st. Anything else? So next we have presentations. This is the bond sale update and next steps, and this is an informational item.
Liz Hensky is here from Raymond James and John Pamanti from Ellers. Ellers acted as our municipal financial advisor, and Raymond James was our underwriter for our recent bond sale, so they're going to give you a quick update on how that went. It was successful. And then also, again, that was just half of that bond restructuring that we were going to be doing this year, and the other half will be in January, so they're going to the results of that.
Thanks, Cindy. Thanks for having us. So the full presentation is up on the back. We went to market on October 11th. The first page, you can see this graph shows the light blue bars are the highest interest rates have been in year 1 to 30. The dark line in the middle is kind of the average, and the red line is where interest rates were on the yield curve on October 6th. If we go to the next page, we like to look at the 10-year and the 20-year municipal market data index. This is the interest rate for that AAA municipal market data index. And so we just highlighted a couple of dates, starting on the left, the pre-election and post-election rates, where we talked about the rates going up so quickly last November. Then the pricing of the Series 2016 private placement for refunding. Then we go through and we've got, volatility throughout the year, low point in summer of 2016, and then we've got the board meeting on September 5th, where the 10-year was at 185, and it was near its low point and just a little higher than that on October 10th before we went to market. So just on the update on the process, we met with the board on September 5th. We met with the FFAC committee and presented the financing options, where we talked about doing 2 issues: bank qualified, so we get lower rates, versus issuing the bonds all at once, non-bank qualified. The FFC concurred with the bank qualified recommendation, and the Board of Education approved the bond parameters resolution, which delegated the final pricing authority to the board president and the director of business and finance. The district, we had a lengthy and comprehensive rating presentation, and the district maintained its Moody's AA2 rating, which we were very pleased. Maintaining that AA2 rating versus being downgraded to AA3 due to reliance on the state of Illinois saved the district approximately 10 basis points on the interest rate, or $165,000 over the life of the bond. And it was a really excellent rating presentation. Everything is very great from the things that the district can control, but the concern of the rating agencies, especially at that time, was the state of Illinois. So we were pleased we maintained that rating. So page 5 goes over the results. So again, our pricing date was October 11th, and we closed the bond issue November 1st. The all-in true interest cost of the bonds were 3.472%, That compares favorably with the September 14th estimate of 3.625. The net present value savings was 672,645, and that compares favorably with the prior estimate, which was only 427,322 back on September 14th. The next set of pages, and I won't spend a ton of time on this, but it looks at the process we went through with Cindy and the board president between our pre-pricing and final pricing on October 11th, and Ayler's, of course, with us. So we looked at the rates, pre-pricing, which are on the right side of the page, and we look at the yield and the spread to that municipal market data index. We came back then at the end of the day with the final sale, and we're actually able to lower 4 of the maturities in rates. So we lowered those rates. The very last maturity did go up a few basis points. So the next several pages compare this final pricing with the other bond issues in the market at the time. And there was a Morgan County School District, the Boone County District. Those were a little bit lower rated than your district, so the rates were higher as they should be. We go to page 8. We've got 2 more districts. Champaign Community Unit District 116, Urbana was in the market, as was Antioch School District 34, which is a good comparison because they're AA rated, similar to your AA2 rating in Moody's. Theirs is an S&P rating, but you can see how our spreads are lower than they priced back in September. So we were pleased with some of these comparables. And I mentioned through the process, John, Monty, and Adrian Booker from Ayler's were with us every step of the way, and turn it to John to give his report.
Great, thank you. Yes, as Ayler's and Associates serving as the municipal advisor to the district, in preparation for the district's issue, our team went and researched the comparable sales that Liz had presented. We had some of our own, looked at market indices, leverage our experience with the municipal bond market to advise the district on the 2017 issuance. Comparability factors included Illinois issues. We focused on date of sale, maturity dates and structures, credit ratings, bank qualification status, making sure that we're tax exempt, and also similar redemption features. For the district's 2017 series bonds, the underwriter, meaning Raymond James, presented debt structure, debt service structures with coupons, yields for annual maturities beginning on January 1st, 2029 through January 1st, 2037. In our analysis, Ayler's considered comparable sales dated between October 3rd and August 15, 2017. Ayler studied each sale independent of the underwriter to determine the fair market value pricing for the district's bond sale. We believe that the comparable sales presented by Raymond James were consistent, reasonable, excluding the sales with rating enhancement. So we sometimes issues will have some type of enhancement to get to that strong AA2 rating. We wanted to look at issues both with that and without in some cases, mostly without. So separated that just to make sure we were comparing apples to apples. The Ayler's team concluded, concurred with the findings of Raymond James during the preliminary and final pricing calls. Despite the recent increase in yields, rates remain relatively low, which is good. The state of Illinois' financial pressures continue, obviously, resulting in issuers paying more for borrowing costs and comparable issues in other states, which is unfortunate. However, the Illinois bond market has stabilized since last summer due to the fact that the budget impasse is hopefully solved, at least for now. Investors viewed the district's credit quality favorably, again with a AA2 bond rating from Moody's, which is a great thing to have. The district benefited from lower yields on the day-to-day pricing compared to a higher repricing estimate provided by the underwriter. which was very fortunate. So in synopsis, in conclusion, we recommend that the district approve the bond purchase agreement from Raymond James. Thank you.
So the next page looks at the kind of four-part refunding plan. Now, the 2016 is actual, the 2017 is actual. The next step is the 2018. The other part of the bank qualified refunding of the Series 2008 bonds, which is proposed to occur in January. We will be re-upping the bond rating in December and getting ready to go into the market in early January, as we find that there's very little bond supply then, and it's often a good time to hit the market. And then the last piece is the proposed 2019 refunding. So you can see the debt structure that we've been talking about and revisiting, and the impact on the homeowner, owner of a $150,000 house. So the refunding restructuring stabilizes the debt payments, but stretches the debt out. The next chart is the graph that shows the resulting more level debt payments, albeit out several more years than originally planned. Also, just to report back to you on the last page, all local banks were approached to purchase the bonds, including First Midwest Bank, Resource Bank, and First National Banks. The actual purchasers of the bonds included Wintrust Banks, RSW Investments, and Old Second National Bank in Aurora. You entertain any questions you have on our sale process or sale results? Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.
Next, we have the dashboard update, food services and facilities. And this is an informational item.
Victoria, we have item.
Bond disclosure compliance policy.
Sorry, that's okay. And the reason we're doing this now is because since we have the bond update, and this was part of our bond call, was that we needed to update our bond disclosure policy. It hadn't been updated in quite some time, and since the changes with the SEC. So what Chapman and Cutler gave us, who was our bond counsel, is a draft of that policy, which is included in the board agenda item. And really what this does is it designates a compliance officer, which would be myself, and then also describes what those disclosure procedures are after bonds are issued, going through that official offering statement, which when we did do this bond issuance, it was a pretty detailed, very thick document that I looked at, Elizabeth looked at, and then everybody else, Chapman and Cutler, as well as our Hinshaw legal counsel as well. And also after the bonds are issued, we are required on an annual basis to report to EMA, which is the electronic municipal market access system. So everybody has access to that, or any bond holders to see what our financial statements are, or if there's any disclosures that we need to make. So at the next meeting, what we'd like to do is the board consider adopting this policy.
Consensus on to bring this back?
Thank you.
Sorry, Cindy, about that.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay, now we have the dashboard update, food services and facilities.
We wanted to come back in front of the board. This is something we do annually. Back 2 years ago, Carol and I both presented plans for the food service department and for the facilities department as a cost savings measure. And each year we want to make sure we come back and just reinforce that what we presented 2 years ago on the plan that we put in place 2 years ago is still working in the monies that we said that we would render savings on, are continuing to save at that level. So just to go briefly through a few of these slides, the board goal we have up there, and then it also itemizes the timeline that we went on. And what it involved back 2 years ago for my department was we were looking at an option that was brought forward called a modified cleaning plan. And at the time, we were cleaning all classrooms, all spaces every night. And at that time, we came forward with a plan that was modified cleaning plan, which general classrooms are cleaned on an every other night basis.
kitchens, bathrooms, some of our special ed spaces are cleaned every night. And then we actually were able to render a savings of $200,000 a year by these modified changes that we have presented. We've continued with that plan. We have some checks and balances in place, which we'll touch on briefly tonight. And again, like I said, we're still able to continue to save that $200,000 a year consistently. And then for Carol's.
We also experienced some structural changes in our staffing, and that was approximately 2 years ago too. So we came to the board with some restructuring, and that had to do with all our cooks. All our cooks and our head cooks are on our payroll, and so we restructured the food service department with also monetary values to that.
Some of the things that we present are the expectations and best practices. These pretty much have not changed over the last 2 years when it comes to our departments. We've tweaked them in regards to different monitorings we're doing for inspections and trainings for each of our departments, which can include for ours, the ROE, OSHA coming in, fire marshal checks, those type of things. For Carol's, it's obviously different.
We tweaked, and as you know, last year, I'll just bring everybody kind of up to speed. Last year was our 5th year, a tail end of our 5th year with our food service management company, that was Chartwell's within the part of the Compass Group. So mandatory by USDA makes our food service contract go out to bid every 5 years. So last year, at the tail end of last year, we put a bid out. Now we have a new contractor, and that is Aramark. So our goals have relatively stayed the same, but also tweaked to bring in a new food service management company. So for those of you who were not here last year, I'm going to go through this so you got to bring it a little bit up to speed. So we always want to make sure that we have the safe food handling practices, and that especially with our new vendor. And everybody is right on top of the game there. So I have no concerns there whatsoever. And then we're going to continue to develop and encourage the highest standards in our school nutrition program. And so that's not only a melding of what Aramark brings to us, it's also our district standards. We have our own food service operations manual. That's our district manual that we use as guidelines. But again, we're incorporating Aramark as a new company along with our food service state sanitation guidelines. And that's bullet point number 4. We also, our district does food safety audits 2 to 3 times a week. That's done by myself and our food service Mike. And then what we're looking at also is we're monitoring all the critical control points. And those are points for the layman is at what stage of preparing food can we possibly be in danger. So that's what I mean by the critical control points. We're always monitoring how we cook the food, where we cook the food, and all the safety points that go along with it. So we're doing that all the time. We continue with our staff development with our cooks also, because we do have professional standards. That's new in our industry. It's been about 2 years, give or take. And so all our cooks right now, we're way ahead of the game, which is a wonderful thing. We're on top of training and now kind of venturing out into additional training with our cooks and our head cooks. That includes annual nutrition training, which is part of our standards. We did meet the goal of a nutrition level 1 recertification of all our cooks. And also we have an updated D4 two-way cleaning manual that we have in place. So we have an operations manual, cleaning manual, and now we're going to have a training manual. So Mike and I are also working on a training manual that trains our cooks and our head cooks. So that is our update from food service.
For facilities, like I listed, we meet the safety requirements of ROE, OSHA, and the fire safety. One other thing that's itemized up here is that with the request for additional cleanings. One thing that was brought up is, how are we going to monitor if there's requests for additional cleanings because of a variety of reasons. It could be illnesses, it could be special events that are going on, or it could be a miscommunication that we've had subs in the building and they didn't get a room clean that should have been cleaned the night before. We keep track of all of those and the reasons and which ones we approve, and we have a process for that. Last year, we had 45 requests for additional cleanings throughout the entire year at all of our buildings, and 40 of those were approved based on the conditions of them.
As I mentioned, we do have a food service management company, which is new. And actually, Aramark was here 6 years ago. So we're back again in year 1 of a 5-year contract. So we're in transition with them. We're about two months into our transition and working through all the things that require transition. So we're going to continue, though. We did mention last year of our satellite efficiencies, and we're looking to also keep zooming in on those also. That's something we addressed last year. Also, we are making, and we've already done job tasks for all our stations and all our kitchens. So with our daily job tasks, excuse me, need some water. Number 5 is enhancement of our cooking standards. So that's something we're working on. And then also we're working with Airmark with their marketing plan for year 1 through year 5.
Our department, we do a survey each spring. We did it again this past April. I believe the date, and I've got some survey results in here for you to view. So we use those survey results where we ask all of the staff on how are we doing as a department, from our custodial, as well as our grounds and our maintenance. So we do plan to do those again, probably December, January, trying to get on more of a halfway through the year rotation. Then we do the changes we need to make based on those survey results. We also have our supervisors out doing regular inspections of our buildings. We have 2 levels of inspections, which I'll go into. One is more on performance and cleanliness, and the other is more meeting the standards of ROE and fire marshal. But we'll continue to make those changes we need based on those inspection results.
Now what you see are your staff, and we're going to feature the high school this time around. Next time I meet with you, we'll feature the other schools, but everything you're seeing here are all the changes that took place at the high school. Top left is Naomi. She is our deli server, and that's what your deli looks like every day for those students that walk in the door. The picture to the right is called the tortilla line, and that is Mexican cuisine. The second picture, we're going back to the left, and you'll see the food. That is how the food is displayed on the tortilla line. What you see is what our students get. And on the right side, that's called corn crust, and that's our pizza display. Lots of different varieties of pizza every day. Now, the bottom picture on the left, that is an actual pizza that came right out of the oven as I flashed the picture. That's what the kids are seeing, and that's what the kids are getting. On your right are your cook staff. That's Shawnee Groves on the left, Kathy Prater in the middle, and Rosa Pena, and those are your 3 cooks at the high school. Lula, she's our picture in the top left. Lula's been with us a long, long time, at least 6, 7 years. Back in the day when her and I were working together with a different vendor. Lula is in our snack bar area, but she's making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches as we speak with the smirk she has on her face. Now in the middle section, you will see that is Mexican cuisine, so you'll see all the toppings that the kids see and the choices they have every day. The right side, right corner is Shawnee and Kathy, and they are making the donuts, just like Dunkin' Donuts, and that's what they're doing. Every day we offer a donut, and it is a top grade, whole grain donut. To ease everybody's mind. It's not Dunkin' Donuts, not Krispy Kreme. We're going back to the left column. That is one of the open air coolers we have, and so where you see fresh fruit displayed all the time. The middle picture is an actual display plate. And every station has a display plate, so the kids know exactly what their lunch looks like. If they want their lunch, that's what they're seeing, and that's what they're getting. To the right is our wonderful Baxter oven, and that is state-of-the-art at the high school, as you all know. And the ovens, they twirl. The pizzas twirl. You push the whole rack in, and they twirl. It's not like your typical pizza oven. It's different, but it produces a great product. That's also the can't see the size. Restaurant rotation, thank you. And that's a rotating menu item. So every day it's something different, and they feature different things all the time. It could be a certain ethnic, cuisine. It's all different. The middle bottom picture, that is a gorgeous display plate, and that's what the kids see, and that's what the kids get. That is a salad made on the tortilla line. So I wanted you to see all the enhancements at the high school. There's all the new marketing material that Airmark brought in, so the high school is top notch. All the other schools have certain other things that we're going to feature, but not tonight.
I do have a question about that. Sure. So you put pictures of, you said the high school top notch, but the elementary schools and the middle schools, they were not included.
Not in this presentation because we'd be here a longer time. So I wanted to this first. I wanted to feature the high school. You've probably seen the most significant changes at the high school. The elementaries, with the exception of Malta and Cortland, have really logistic challenges because our cafeteria is also the gym. There's not many signage and different kinds of things we could put out in the gym. So at the elementaries, other than the 2 schools I mentioned, we have the signs inside the cafeteria. And the middle schools do have new signage too, but I just didn't feature them this time around. I wanted to show you one thing at a time, which is the high school, and then move through the different schools for the next time around. We're gonna go over what we always look at every day with food service, and we kind of classify these into different levels. Food safety is always number one in our book. We feed thousands of students a day, and we want to make sure we do it in the right way. So what you see there is just priorities we look at. We do food safety audits. We check temperatures. Our head cooks have daily checklists. We have implemented Airmark safety standards along with our safety standards, and quality of meals is always something we want to address. Again, for those of you who were here last year, we knew we had challenges with the satellite operations, so we're still looking at that and seeing what we can do to enhance that operation. Health department scores are 2 per building every year. We're within USDA compliance. We are scheduled for an ISB audit. That's part of our Nature Work East. And that's how we classify what we're doing. Level 2 is, of course, uniform compliance, hair restraints, the normal things that go along with food service, making sure we're compliant with USDA and our National School Lunch Program, and also getting ready for state audit, and that's part of our training also. And then district-specific training. That's all the training that we are required to do as a district. But then on top of that, we have all the training that's required in the food service industry. So it's a lot of training that our folks go through. Level 3 priority is actually we're implementing Airmark safety standards along with our safety standards, and then continuous improvement through the input of student groups. We've already met with student groups already, and so we're getting their input, and we act on that input. And then last but not least, again, is transition with our new vendor, Airmark.
For the facility operations departments, we do have 2 levels of inspections we complete. One is a level 1, which is cleanliness and performance. Last year, our supervisors completed 101 inspections throughout the district. This year, our goal is to complete inspections weekly once a month as needed for a goal of 96 for the year. Level 2 are full building inspections, and what those are considered, again, are more safety ROE type inspections. We were low last year with only 34. We were, one of our supervisors was out for an extended amount of time, so we were behind on those. But this year, we are on track to already reach our goals of the 96 per year. We always have our annual ROE inspections and bring those reports to you. Those are currently scheduled for December for all of our buildings, and those include the ROE for the local fire department and the fire marshal. And then 10-year life safety inspections we completed in 2015 with our district architect, and those violations are in the process of still being corrected and will be finished before the 3-year deadline.
I have a question.
Yes.
How long have we been doing the every other day? How long? And then, from what I understand, when there's an additional request or an additional need, then you address that. Mm-hmm. So how long has that program been in place?
We're entering our 3rd school year,
yeah.
And we have a procedure in place where an email is sent from specific individuals in the building to detail why extra cleaning is being requested. It's either from the health office or specifically through a principal from a teacher.
Or something perhaps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those numbers are all tracked, and a decision is made and then communicated back to the individuals. And then if we need to have the custodian do an extra cleaning or an extra room that night, that is budgeted into their time.
Sure. Thanks.
What you have here is our expenditures are strategically placed on salaries. So what you have in the left-hand column is our year-to-date numbers for 15-16, and I can barely read those numbers. But when you look at the top numbers, that's how much we spent with the cooks. Again, cook salaries are in these numbers. And then you have a sub salary on that orange line, and I can't read that number. 2,800 for subs. So in 15-16, I was very low on subs. I did not have enough subs, and subs are part of our contract with DFSS. And so you will see the jump on the right side for 16-17. We spent 13,000 in subs because I had 4 subs hired to replace our cooks. So that is your comparison of labor from 15-16 and 16-17. And what you don't see in there, though, is we're looking at a cost savings of about $5,500, and that also includes the contractual raise for the cooks at 1.3% increase for this year and for last year also.
This one I'll speak to. This is a history of our food service historical revenue and expenditures since 2010-11. You can see basically we had a couple years where we had some losses, but we've been having, our revenues have exceeded expenditures in the last couple of years. Specifically in 16-17, we had higher federal revenues for our National School Lunch Program. They had increased the reimbursement rate. And then on the expense side, those stayed fairly flat with the help of some of the tweaks with the food service salaries and changes there, as well as the increase for our vendor was a 0.7%, which was tied to CPI, and the increase in the revenues was higher than that. So overall, we're doing a good job in maintaining the revenues over.
All right, the next slide is the salary, the dollars for facility operations. And what you're looking at right now is specific to the custodial department because the modified changes that we made 2 years ago were specific changes to the custodial part of facilities. It didn't impact maintenance and grounds. So what this is in fiscal year 16, we had 1.7 million in expenses for custodial, and that includes our gross wages for our custodial staff. It also includes our subs and our summer help are all added in there. With the natural increase of the 1.3% for the contractual obligation and looking at our numbers going into for 16-17, we actually had a total savings when you add all three of those groups together of over $47,000 above what we projected to save. So we have projected that we would be at that 200. And when I should clarify, when I say save, it's more maintain. Because we said we would continue to maintain that $200,000. We actually reduced our expenses when it came to wages by $46,683 over the previous year by just the management of the custodial hours.
What's a natural increase?
Well, we are contracted through the DFSS contract to give a specific percentage of raises, and that is completely out of my control once the contract is signed. So because of that, that dollar amount was the $21,559 raises or wages went up to that. But even considering that, we had a savings of $46,000 over what we.
So the natural refers to the contractual.
Contractual.
And so on.
Exactly, for the custodians.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. The next slide is some additional savings I wanted to share with you. Last year, we were making a significant effort to review all of our contracts that we have outstanding with the district and with our vendors, because you kind of run out of things to try to save money on. You know, we did some great savings when it came to wages, but then, you know, what else can we render? So I wanted to itemize for you some savings we were able to render through some changes to our contracts that are ongoing. They include the elevator, waste services, asbestos, RPZ testing. We saved on snow removal costs over the previous year. We took advantage of some Dekalb funding, which were rebates, as well as took advantage of the demand response program through our electrical program, saving maintenance and grounds $66,000 over the previous year contract. So if we wouldn't have negotiated anything, we would have been paying that additional $66,000 going into this year. For custodial, when we compared what we spent on our custodial products, repairs, maintenance, and equipment over the previous year, we spent $32,000 less than the previous year on products and repairs and maintenance and equipment. In addition, we had a negotiating time with our custodial cleaning company in regards to the floor wax that we use, because that's a significant expenditure at the start of every summer. And we were able to negotiate a $7,000 savings over the summer before on our floor wax. So our total for our department was over $100,000 in some savings that if we wouldn't have put some significant effort towards, we would have just been continuing to pay at the $100,000 level.
The equipment section of the cleaning chemical equipment savings with the 31, almost 32K. How much of that is deferred purchase of equipment? I mean, can you give me an idea on, you know, we just decided we didn't need this, or we decided that we're not going to buy it this year, we'll buy it 5 years from now, or whatever?
What percentage? You know, it's a hard number to put in because one piece of equipment might cost me $1,500 and another piece of equipment maybe $30,000. So I can't say, besides the scrubber that was actually part of a proposal that's going to go on the next screen for Brooks, there wasn't any that I specifically said, we're absolutely not going to do that this year, we're going to wait for a future for the next year, except for that Brooks scrubber. And I believe, if I remember correctly, that was like $7,000.
Yeah, because I mean, it's a temporary savings if you're eventually going to buy it anyway, right?
It is. Fortunately, we put some significant dollars towards our custodial equipment over the last 5 to 7 years. And we're doing a much better job of maintaining it over the years that I don't anticipate that we have any significant needs for large purchases. The other savings I wanted to bring forth, if you recall in the spring, I'd asked for a budget increase for our department of a total of $216,000 was approved by the board because of some unusual expenditures we were anticipating going into this year that had to be addressed either for safety reasons or cost efficiencies, or also when it came to like the water testing, it was a requirement. And at this point, out of the 216,000, we have only spent 195,000 of it, and I don't anticipate, with the exception of maybe another $2,000, that we won't be spending any more of that. So out of the 216 that you did approve, we have a savings of about $20,000 that we didn't spend of those dollars. Survey results, just wanted to give you a glimpse of our survey results from 2016 compared to 2017 for custodial services, ground services, and maintenance. This is on a scale of 1 to 3, 3 being exceeding expectations, 2 meeting, and 1 below expectations. And the one thing I would like everyone just to notice, all of them are 2 and above on an average, and they also, I believe every one of them improved from 2016 to 2017 in that reading.
Who took the survey?
All staff.
Thank you.
And that's our summary. And as it says up there, we just continue to work on our steps to success with our monitoring and reviewing and making sure we're making proposals and changes as needed as the district and the market did.
So are you using the survey to do this little plan, this little graphic you're showing us to inform and change where you need to deliver service? And when I looked, I was curious about the scale, so it's 1 to 3. But when I looked at just the differential between the numbers here, I noticed right away that in classrooms was one of the lowest, right, at 2.03 in one year and 2.2 in the next year. And then I noticed also that some consumables were some of the lowest things. So obviously where there are large numbers of people, although the hallways, there's a large number of people, and that was fairly high. So what do you do with this information, this 1 to 3 range survey? Are you using it to make changes or not, or what?
There's a lot of comments that come in with this survey, and really the comments are even more beneficial than the numbers. If I was seeing a significant decline in a specific area, whether it was classrooms or stocking of consumables, those are then some issues we need to address with the head custodial staff or the custodians themselves. But when I see numbers that on average are meeting those expectations, even though classrooms are on the low side, I tend to expect that, because I believe if you took a vote and money wasn't an issue, the staff would prefer that we clean classrooms, all classrooms, every single night. And every space, every single night, go back to what we were, but because of some cost savings measures, we don't. That's why those, even though it says, even based on the modified cleaning schedule, people still are going to rate that on a lower level, in my opinion, because they aren't seeing a clean room every single time they walk in the morning. Always, they're cleaned every night. Bathrooms are cleaned every night. And those type of things I tend to think.
That explains the difference. I thought, why is a high traffic area like a hallway or amenity doing better in the survey than the classroom? Because
That would be,
you only clean classrooms every second day.
Right.
Okay, makes sense.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next, we have the non-business consent agenda. That the Board of Education approve the non-business consent agenda items A through D. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Discussion?
In item C, related to sponsorship and fundraisers, I'm curious whether anybody here could address the issue of whether any failure on the part of students to reach fundraising goals is met with anything punitive. I'm recently informed about a case of that, and want to try to make sure that before we go forward with any kind of fundraising plan, that
So, I mean, from what I gather, just my children are in orchestra, and if we have a fundraiser and they are to meet a certain amount, that is to cover their field trip per se, that they're going to go on. If they don't sell enough items to cover that field trip, then I have to pay for that field trip. That's how that is conducted, but that's at the middle school. Maybe Mr. Horn may know how it is at the high school.
Very similar, that is to cover the expense. So correct, yeah, no, but as far as the students being punished, no. What's that?
What's this punitive if the mom or dad cannot pay for the field trip? So how is that approached, Mr. Horn?
Sorry, what was that?
There's one more question.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's okay. So for instance, let's just take me as if I was unable to pay for that field trip,
Right.
what would happen?
It depends on the club. Sometimes it depends if it's a co-curricular activity, meaning that they're getting some sort of credit. Band is one of those areas where it's an extracurricular activity as well as as a class that students receive credit for. We usually try and find creative ways to fund those students.
Okay, so no student is left out of a field trip or doing something because of inability to pay.
As much as we can try, yes. So really, especially if it's something that is required, that's necessary, that is dependent. If it's a field trip that's an add-on, there's some potential there that if the student's not able to pay, that they would not be able to go.
So I guess hopefully that answers that.
Yeah, I got one. It's in the text of the agreement, or I don't know if you call it agreement, but anyway, regarding the decals on the trailer. And the language says, this is the next to the last paragraph. We will work with you to make sure you are happy with the image that will appear for the next 5 years and that you see a quality return on your investment. So this is, the notion is to charge a fee to an advertiser, basically, an entity from town or somewhere. So I'm a little concerned about the language of that. I mean, maybe I shouldn't be, I don't know, that you see a quality return on your investment. How can we as a district ensure, that an advertiser, that a person that's contracting with us to allow their decal to be put on the trailer for a fee, how can we ensure that they will have a quality return on your investment? I don't like the language.
I think it's the delivery of the product per se. That's what I'm interpreting from it.
I mean, because there's no quantifying the return of the investment. We know what the investment is, we know the fee, but we don't know in any way how we can quantize or qualify the return on the investment. So I'm a little concerned about us making a statement, we will make sure you are happy. It's a kind of a subjective statement for a business. Anybody got any comments about that?
I guess my concern is more with like Howard brought up, the fact, the inability of the child is.
Yeah, that's a completely separate issue.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a business arrangement. It's a fundraising issue, yes, but it's a business contract with any number of how much space they have, right? I mean, they say in here that you have X number of inches to give, so you better get in there now because there might not be room later if you make a request later. But it's essentially a contract, I think.
It's free, I guess. They could always opt to do something else.
Yeah,
Do what they do all the time.
I don't think so. I'm assuming that James, we'll have the opportunity to review and approve before this goes to print.
Correct. But so yeah, anything that we're going to put out there that is showcasing Dekalb high score, just D428 in any fashion, that's going to be sent around, then yeah, we will have prior review of that.
I just had a thought based on you starting to talk there, James. Maybe what they mean by, Mr. Owen means with this is that we'll make sure that they're happy with the placement or the decal, the work of putting their decal, and not that we're going to guarantee, that they're going to get X more business
No,
result
no,
of-
no, no, and
Yeah,
also
that's how I
that's
was
something
thinking
that
of
we
it
can align
originally was.
ourselves to. I mean, we're not interested in putting a.
Yeah. No, because I can see how we can, we can make sure they're happy about the
Correct.
decal and that it's not crooked or something like that. Okay, so if that's what this means, I'm okay with it, but I don't want to put the district in a position of saying, yeah, your business is gonna grow by 10% if you put this decal on our trail.
No, that's not the intent of that wording at all.
Okay,
No.
all right, as long as they know
I
that.
don't think people would, I hope people would think that.
Plus it's explicit, it's
I
not.
hope it was, yeah, I don't know, but I do.
Well-
But I'm not gonna put a decal on the trailer, so they have to worry about me.
All right, roll call.
Jeff Albrecht,
Yes.
Terry Millet,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Valerie Pena Hernandez,
Yes.
Howard Solomon.
Next we have business and finance, impact fee waiver, residential new construction, and this is an informational item.
Back on October 11th at our last FFAC committee meeting, Ken Anderson, who's the executive officer of the DeKalb County Building and Development Association, and Alex Pinky from the Government Affairs Director from the Hometown Association Realtors, presented to FFAC a request to waive impact fees that on current platted single-family lots. The city of DeKalb has already done so. Back on July 10th, I was at your city council meeting, and they approved a similar type of arrangement in order to spur some new residential development on current lots. It wouldn't be any that have been platted. It's like subdivisions like River Mist, Debonair Farms, those particular subdivisions. There's specific subdivisions within the resolution that they were looking at. So they have come to us to ask if the board would consider waiving those impact fees for the first 100 construction permits for those specific subdivisions to help spur that. Right now, the standard fees for the city range from about $2,600 to $3,800. Since they've done this, they've we've had 2 building permits so far. Our impact fees for DeKalb 428 on single-family detached homes is based on the number of bedrooms, and those range from about $261 to $2,200. Over the last 6 years, we've collected about $8,000 in impact fees. So obviously, it's been very the economic conditions and the fall in the housing market. We haven't had much activity in new construction for residential single-family homes. So we're, FFAC did consider this, and they are recommending that we do waive those fees with the specifics of the subdivisions that were listed in the resolution, as well as putting in a specific time period for no more than 3 years. So based on the number of building permits, as well as the period of time to be looked at in 3 years, if we want to continue to do that, depending on residential construction, or if we would stop it and then charge those fees afterwards. And we would have to work with the city council on this, because this is technically their ordinance, and they would also have to, when they passed their ordinance to waive their fees, they excluded the park district and the city, the school district, but then they would have to redo their ordinance to include us as well. So FFC has recommended for us to take a look at this.
Does this become an intergovernmental agreement between us and the city?
Not necessarily, it's more an ordinance. So what we would do is have our resolution, because we've already worked this through our legal counsel as well, they've looked at it. And then what the city would have to do is to pass an ordinance to, the same ordinance they passed already, and then just say now DeKalb School District will also.
So it's an addendum to their existing.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking, we'll have to work with them. That's what it's would happen.
And what about another contractor, let's say a small contractor that says, gee, I've got a lot over here and I want to build on and I don't want to pay an impact fee?
It's
Do we have-
specific to the subdivisions?
No, outside of what's listed.
Right, so wouldn't,
So that person would have to pay the normal.
yeah,
impact
because they're not
fee. But what's the
included.
chance they'll take us to court over that?
I don't know.
They have the opportunity to go to the city and ask for
The same type of
the
waiver.
same type of waiver that these others are covered.
But that would again have to be, I don't know, either an addendum or a new ordinance, right, for that specific.
Yeah, if a developer was taking a plat to the city to get approved, they would have to negotiate to have the impact fees waived.
Yeah, just a little, I mean, yeah, I guess that's how it would normally go. I'm just a little worried about the equity. I mean, if we sign on and say, yeah, fees for this group of properties or plats. You know, but someone else comes along later and says, me too. You know, and we say, no, thanks, we're not gonna give you the waiver.
But they have the opportunity to go through the same process that the other groups have gone through.
So from what I understand, go to the city, they decide that they're gonna make an exception and waive that particular one, then they come to us, or we would take their recommendation on that if you want. So it's item by item. They're just going with the general, from what I'm gathering from this, they're going with the general, I mean, the ones that have the most available lots and they're most likely to be built on. So the other would be an exception. At least from my experience in that particular area, that would be dealt with as an exception. I'm sure it would be considered.
Yeah, another thing I noticed that when I was reading this earlier was that there's no time limitation on the city's.
The city does not have one, but we'd like to put a time limitation.
Which is a great idea, I think, but will the city consider to put?
Yeah, we would actually have some conversation if they wouldn't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, where's the money gonna come from? We're gonna waive this. Our intent is to broaden the base, you know, to expand the AV base. That's all for the good. But at some point, you know, when things start cooking, you know, then we're gonna back away from the waivers.
Right.
Because somebody's gotta pay for this. I mean, you know,
Ultimately, you're going to want to end up increasing the tax base. That's, this is a one-time thing. Ultimately, you're gonna get that farther down the road. That's what it'll come back to you anyway. So it doesn't seem like anything we really would have much struggle with.
And Carrie, it's really all of us. I mean, it's the partners or the people involved contributing to development. We're really just all trying to do something to contribute to development. And I think if it does, that'd be absolutely stupendous anyway. So I think we'll all be very happy if it does give some.
But I think it's very important, as obviously the FFAC and you and the attorney decided, to put a time limitation on this.
Right.
Because there's a couple of different ways it could go, right? I mean, it's just like an income tax decrease. It could expand the economy and everybody does better, but if it doesn't work, then everybody pays more. You know, so you have to be careful. You have to cover yourself in both directions.
But wouldn't it be a great problem?
Yeah.
Do we have to be revisiting this?
Yeah, because we've exceeded the 100 or, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What a great problem to have.
It sounds like we have consensus here that to bring it back. Okay, everybody in agreement?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next we have the tax rate objection settlement. This is an action item that the Board of Education approved the settlement of the 2016-2017 tax rate objection case in the principal sum of $179,000. Do you have a motion?
So move.
Second with discussion.
Sorry.
No.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Black?
Yes.
Victoria Newport?
Yes.
Valerie Pena Hernandez?
No.
Howard Solomon?
No.
Fred Davis? Or Jeff Holman? Sorry.
Yes.
Next, we have approval of purchase order requisition list. This is an action item that the Board of Education approve the purchase order requisition list as attached. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Discussion? Okay. Roll call, please.
Valerie Pena Hernandez?
Yes.
Howard Solomon?
Yes.
Jeff Holman?
Yes.
Mayor Black?
Yes.
Victoria Newport?
Yes. Next, we have old business and administration classroom party survey, and this is an informational item.
Again, just a quick update that, thank you, Kristen Meyer, and input from other cabinet members. We have 2 surveys that have been put together, ready to send out. One is a parent survey on the holiday parties versus the seasonal parties, and the other survey will go out to staff, and we'll bring feedback to the board and for consideration.
I remember during the time that we had this discussion, we had talked about parents, teacher, but also students. And I didn't see one for students. I understand that might take a little bit more work, but could there possibly be one for students? And I get that obviously kindergartners, first graders don't know how to read or are learning how to read. But I mean, there are things that maybe we can do to help them through that process, maybe during classroom time, answering it one by one, reading it out loud. I just think it's important that we get a feel all around, which is what was discussed.
I like that idea of having the students have say also. We hear their voices.
I'll go beyond what Val was saying. Just thought of this today, actually. I've been thinking about the whole issue for quite a long time. But we're sending these out to students and to teachers, and you just suggested, beyond that. What about the rest of our constituents? I mean, we have taxpayers, we have businesses, we have all kinds of people that pay money to keep this place going. Do they have a part of this? I mean,
they have
it's a
public comment
community,
and
right?
they have the
So
ability.
the more I thought about it, I said, gee, I mean, maybe, I don't know. I don't know if there's even any way, or I guess there's always a way, but how would you get their opinion?
The logistics of that would be.
This continues to evolve. I was asked to put together 2 surveys. And if we want to put together 2 more surveys, then we can table this and, maybe the Chronicle will do a survey for us and have and let the community weigh in and we'll just let the winner take all.
Yeah. I think to the point that you made, Valerie and you, Victoria, on students being involved, I think that we might, the logistics on that might be problematic, but I think we're going to get some input from children through the parents. And I think that when this is set out to parents, that they're going to have some sort of input. The children are definitely going to have some input, I think, depending on, of course, their age. But I think that children will give some input to their parents when they're teaching.
And that may be true to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But then again, the thing is that some of the questions, these questions are well crafted. They were well thought out, really. Do they understand why these holidays were replaced? Maybe that's the whole issue. Or, maybe are they happy with PBIS? I'm sitting here talking about how I experienced it in 2 buildings, or 3 buildings. And that was my take, that was what I took away from it. But the most important thing, because we serve students, is to know how they feel, what they feel. And really, our educators, to a certain degree, they're going to have that conversation with the students. So we're going to get more out of it with our students rather than just focusing in on one group. And we want to get the overall picture because we have the parents coming, but we want to know how our students feel at the end of the day.
And you feel the same way?
I do, I guess. I see Val's point here that we're not asking the group that it affects.
So go back out, create another survey for the students.
I think this one is perfect, just in a kid version.
Well, one of the things I'm most concerned about is the response to the survey. If we could guarantee it, I don't know if guarantee this, but if we could somehow get a very large response, then I would feel a lot more comfortable about it. When you ask questions, and I like the idea of not having too many questions and keeping it simple as much as we can. But when you say, like, do you understand why District Dekalb does support when you choose to replace traditional holiday parties with quarterly celebration? Yes, no, partially, no opinion. Well, if you say no or no opinion, well, why don't you know? Or do you care? I haven't thought about if it were me. I don't care. Some people in the town are probably say, who cares? Other people are going to care a lot. But there's no context, I guess, is what I'm thinking. Because I'm thinking back to when this was brought to us as the board. And it was, in my view, snuck in under the guise of the Senate Bill 100 vote. And so now we're asking people to answer these questions, but some of them have no context within the understanding of these questions, right? I think generally, if we get a large enough response, it's not going to matter. My concern about that is not going to matter. But I'm worried that if we don't get a large enough response, then it might matter. And I wonder whether there ought to be some context. I don't know.
I guess what would be large if we take the number of students in K-5 and project that by, what, 1.25 or 1.5 to get a 1.25 to get a total, projected total number of parents. And then, what percent of that would be an adequate amount?
And another thing, like, if you add a comment section, I mean,
I know,
truthfully,
it's more complicated.
are we going to take the time to read 6,000 comments?
Right.
I mean, this is information that we can look at a short data, graph and say, this is how the majority feels, rather than 1,000 comments that I could read a certain way and you could read a certain way.
It didn't seem that it was leading. I mean, it seemed to me that it was balanced and that it tried not to lean or lead.
Well, it leans in the sense that it makes the assumption that everybody is aware of that it's changed, that it did in fact change. And it does ask the question, do you know why it changed? But it leaves no answer to that.
But Carrie,
that
the point that I think we're making here is that you're going to get a certain number of people that opt out if they're not happy or with the survey, or they're confused by the survey, they're going to opt out.
I'd really love it if a whole bunch of people opted out, because that would tell me, I mean, if it's a large group of people, that would tell me that it's a small issue among a small, very opinionated, or whatever the right word is, group of people. And I want to see what the entire community response is to something like this. I've been reading stuff since Halloween about costumes and all this stuff, and it just, in my view, just ridiculous, the whole thing. But we have to do something that's not ridiculous.
I think that people are going to feel motivated to fill this out on both sides.
On both sides, and I hope that we get a good turnout on all sides.
From what I've talked to people, I think they're motivated on both sides. So I think that Jamie and his staff put together a pretty good questionnaire. It seemed to me that it's never perfect. There are going to be lots of things that we could tweak if we were.
Well, I guess we'll see what the response is and how it goes.
Yeah, let's do that.
And then we'll address it again.
Do we want to do a student one or not? Are we happy with the two that we have, or?
The kids get some, gosh, it's their school, I mean, would they get some fun out of this? Would they learn something from this if we did a student survey? And at what level? I mean, in kindergarten,
The logistics.
it's going to come at it with a different. What do you think, Val?
I think it would be a good experience for the teachers and the students. I mean, I think that when you think about it, it's the parents, the teachers, and the students, and really you get that feedback because, the teachers see the students on a day-to-day basis, but this could be a learning experience, how some students feel and how other students feel. And if we're to a certain degree promoting the biculturalism or for students to be accepting of who they are, this is a great opportunity. This is a teaching experience as to why some students feel a certain way and why students feel a different way. I mean, I see it as a great learning experience, but I am one board member.
I don't regularly work with first and second graders, so I would have to defer to those who live with those kids. I don't know that, and I might be wrong, if they, from what I observed, because I did get to attend some of the fall festivals, Little John and Brooks, and I saw kids having fun. Now, if we would have, and there were a couple of kids in one of the buildings that had their Halloween costumes on, not their face gear, but what they were going to wear that night, I guess. I just saw kids having fun. So whether or not we called it a fall festival and they were having pumpkin races or throwing footballs at a swinging tire, kids were having fun. That's what I saw. So, whether we say you can wear your Halloween costume, we're going to keep you in the classroom and we're going to do activities in the classroom, or we're going to do it school-wide. My opinion is the kids go, I don't really care. We just like doing something. And what we're doing right now was fun. I got to take my dollars and go shoot free throws and throw footballs and throw hula hoops and have pumpkin races. So we're engaging them and rewarding the school-wide for a school-wide PBIS, let's celebrate because we're collectively doing good things. I like that. And again, as we discussed earlier, if the PTOs want to use the buildings and have a Halloween or something that's focused on a holiday, then that's great too. But that way we just don't have a hostage audience. I don't know. I'm showing my bias a little bit here. But
So do we want us to survey?
Well, one thing would be kind of cool, just from a data collection point of view, is to see, to see the change in the kids over the grade levels. I mean, kindergartner says, oh yeah, you know, and the kid in the seventh grade says, well, I don't care, you know. I mean, it'd be kind of interesting to see, but that's just from steps.
You're a researcher.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, there's part of me that, I mean, let's also not forget what we're here for. Teaching and learning, and I know that, you know, that we're talking about the whole child, but, you know, do we trust our teachers and have our teachers do a survey with the K3s and they can raise their hand and we, you know.
Would have to be very structured. I mean, would have to be a nice structured little thing that we do.
Maybe I'll just tour all the schools and give me a chance to meet all the kids and I can just.
Let's decide here what we want to do.
I think we're good with that.
How about if we just do this, see what the result is?
Yeah.
And then maybe go with the kid survey or whatever else we need to do. I mean,
We need to do
I have a lead in on this, and I'd like to keep in mind that constitutionally, for reasons of law, we've made the change away from specifically named religious holiday parties to something that is more generic, more seasonal, and it works. It's kids are having fun, as Jamie said, and Ms. Val said, and as people have indicated. Meanwhile, the staff is generally satisfied with that, and I'm hearing that in comments. So it seems like our default position, unless a survey turns up some indication that we are just so out of touch with the community that we absolutely must turn around and do it. Why generate a problem for ourselves? I would just suggest that we allow our current status unless the survey shows something that's just completely out of whack.
Okay, so we'll go ahead then with the surveys we have, the two.
I think that probably be best.
Yeah.
for the sake of discussion, I would have to disagree with you about constitutional stuff like that. I
Okay.
So good. So there's your, that's your habit.
It boils down to how much time.
Get that survey out there. Okay.
I love it.
Okay, now we're gonna move on.
So we sending out the survey as is.
Yes. Okay, so next we have the diversity plan, and this is an informational item. Jenny?
So there were two items that were shared with you. You had requested a reference check, and that was done having conversations with U46 and also Davenport School District that each of the researchers had worked with. There has also been a diversity plan template created so that you could see those pieces in terms of that accountability piece that would be incorporated into that once you're able to start writing that.
Questions for Jenny?
Yeah, I wish Rick were here to address this because it was his request of Dr. Adams. Well, Dr. Adams was on the screen, and I think they were speaking back and forth. But the references that they sent are a qualification by other districts of these two doctors. But I think that Rick's initial question was something that was, in my mind at least, leaning toward quantifying things.
Carrie, we forget that this was approved in November of 2016. We already did.
So the question I have, Jenny, is did Dr. Adams or Dr. Cohen respond in any way with any information that would say, as a result of our, the plans that were written in any district, any place that we put forward, did those results increase, say, graduation rates or decrease animosity in the student body? I mean, was there anything that we could point at? I mean, this is a very nice reference by these other districts toward these two men. And that's great, but I don't think, in my view, it doesn't answer Rick's question. You know, Rick's question, in my view, was try to quantify what happens in the district if we do this or if we do that.
But Rick is not here and you're speaking.
Well, okay, I'm speaking on my behalf now.
I had a follow-up conversation, and again, I know he's not here, but this is what I took from the conversation. That he simply wants to make sure that that we're taking the necessary steps to do this, in his words, the right way, so that what we put in place really takes hold, and as opposed to another study that is done that gets set on the shelf. That's where Rick was coming from. That we do this the right way so it gets embedded into our district, and that's what he was kind of driving at in the question. And that's what, and he said, I just didn't get the words out the way I wanted them. First, do it the right way so it truly gets embedded.
And I had that same conversation with Rick, and that's exactly what he
Okay,
said.
well, I did not get that from what Rick said during the meeting.
Amber, maybe you could speak to how the process is going to happen,
Sure.
writing the plan.
Sure. I do want to speak just specifically to, because I did have conversations with both U46 and Davenport School District. And they did speak to the fact that, it's a process and it looks very different depending upon what district you are in and what your needs are. And so taking the data and working with the school district, but making it very personal, and both Davenport and U46 said it's making a difference in terms of what it's looking like in the classroom, in terms of having those teachers that are being culturally responsive, culturally relevant pedagogy that is occurring in the classrooms. And so while it's not a process that is yet done, and please listen when I say the word process, because it's not as if we're just going to check off a box and say, well, we've done that. It's going to take us years to get to where we need to be. And so this will be an evolving process. That being said, we have had conversations within the Social Justice Committee, and there will be 3 of us that will be writing the diversity plan. Andrea will be doing that, Dr. Lisa Becker and myself, along with a couple of parents that are here tonight as well, Jessica and Catherine Camacho. They will be helping us write the plan, as well as a couple of high school students. Dr. Adams and Dr. Cohens will be guiding us. They'll be on call so that when we have questions or get stuck, they can provide us with a little bit of additional information, but we will be the writers of the plan. And we will bring it to you for your approval. And then hopefully we can have some policy that will then really guide us as we move forward. Victoria, did that answer your question?
Thank you.
As long as this is so open to to discussion. We have a fiduciary responsibility to not spend money when we don't have to. And one of the things that's going on is we've already contracted the guidance. We are going to pay for the guidance of Drs. Cohen and Adams, whether we actually use their guidance or not. So why pay for it twice? It is an unwise fiduciary situation to do that. Let's use what we already bought.
I'm not convinced of that, Howard. When I asked Cindy about the purchase orders that were given out or were shown during the board meeting a while ago now, I thought that everything had been instituted or concluded. Have those? There were 2 POs, and there actually 4 because it was.
They were cut in half.
Yeah, because it was Dr. Cohen and Dr. Adams. So there was one for the last 2 were for $7,000 each. That was the implementation portion, and the larger amount was for the assessment portion, the survey and so on. So have both of those POs been paid?
Just the assessment.
So why hasn't the implementation, just because the work hasn't been done?
Because while it was board approved, part of that was the information had to be shared with the stakeholders. That happened on Institute Day. But then the consensus to write the diversity plan.
And that's the outstanding purchase order.
So contractually, I mean, back to your fiduciary perspective, contractually, are we bound contractually to pay the $7,000 at this point?
We have basically a signed purchase order, which is
It's waiting.
Okay, all right. Good, thank you. That answers the question that I've got for a while.
Okay, so do we have a consensus then to bring this back as an action item at the next board meeting? Alex, you say?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So you have consensus to bring it back as an action item at the next board meeting?
Thanks, Jay.
Next, we have new business and administration, Illinois multi-tiered system of supports, and this is Constellation. This is Christy Meyer.
We have a great opportunity for us. The Illinois State Board contacted us with an opportunity. They invited us to be part of a small group of districts, 10 to 12, who have been selected because of a few different criteria. One being our diversity, our district, but also our performance data, as well as our willingness in the past to be partners with ISBE and leaders in some respects in the MTSS model. So they approached us, and we now have 2 ISBE coaches from the Illinois MTSS, which stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support Network. And their goal is, with ESSA, the goals that you are familiar with, what they've done at the state level is created their state improvement plan. And of those state improvement plan, they have action plans to reach those goals. And one of the action plans is to work with districts to further develop their MTSS structure in order to improve 3rd grade reading scores. And so we've been selected. We've met with these 2 outstanding coaches twice so far. And it's a 3-year commitment where they're going to be working with us. They use that Jim Knight model, similar to our instructional coaches. And they'll be doing that model with us. We're going to start at the district level, looking at our district data, and then working into our buildings in the 2nd year of implementation, and then further down to the student level. Any questions?
So this,
Sorry.
so how does this play out structurally? In other words, are there new coaches involved? I mean, is this just basically a advisory capacity that they have, and then restructuring is done by our staff in the implementation of the program?
Correct. So they are truly just coaches for us, and they're coaching us to make progress, make changes within our structural systems, or just to push us further in our development. We are pretty far along already, and they're just going to look at how we can best serve our students through that structure.
Well, one of the things that we had like a pre-conference call, there was a webinar, Chrissy sat in and watched it, came back and we had a discussion, and we said, there's some questions that we need to get answered before we sign up for this. And one of them was to make sure that the state didn't have a pre-canned program that they were going to bring in and say, here's what you're going to do. It's just the opposite. They want to come in and see what we're doing, and then see how they can help enhance what we already have in place.
So it's very customized.
Very
Oh,
customized.
very customized, yeah.
Because if it was going to be the pre-canned program, we were going to decline.
Because we're already making progress.
And we don't need another initiative on our plate.
Just because the word opportunity shows up, when somebody comes along and says, I've got a great opportunity for you, I sense that there's an opportunity to have money come out of my pocket. And I don't want that to happen, based on the fact that, so are we getting this coaching and everything for free?
Yes.
Thank you.
Nothing's ever free when it comes from state government, Howard.
Okay.
That's my view.
It's
They are
already,
getting,
it's
they are
already
getting
paid for.
funded from, it's being funded.
From the taxpayers, that's where it comes from.
Somebody other than.
It's through a federal grant.
Still-
Any other questions for Christie? So do we have a
Thank you
consensus
very
then to
much.
bring it back?
Yes.
Yeah, this is actually just an
Oh, just
information, just to let you know that we're in consultation with.
All right.
Why do they call it school improvement plan? That reminds me of when you don't do well enough on the school report card, and eventually you get this category, right? The state takes over.
Oh,
I'd say everybody has a school improvement plan because we're always, regardless of how good you are, you're always trying to get
I
better.
know, but I mean, whenever I see something come over my SBE and it says school improvement plan, I say, oh, we're in trouble.
no, everyone has one. Even the state.
Okay, so next we have the increase 0.5 procedural nurse FTE. This is an informational item.
So there has been an increase in the medical procedures needed of our students throughout the district. Okay, so medical procedures such as tube feedings, diabetic checks, cannot be done by our health assistants. They need to be done by an RN or our CSNs. So we have had an increase in the number of procedures throughout our district. We currently have 5 RNs, and we have 7 buildings right now with multiple. So what we have are buildings that we have an RN or 2 RNs running to take care of these procedures. And in the end, what we have is our practices are not consistent, and that we're not having the same nurse going to see these children throughout their care during the day, which could, we need consistent care for a student for these procedures. So I am requesting that, I gave you a documentation that shows, it was nice and pretty colorful on your docket there, but to show you all of the procedures, and that you see here that we have multiples in the time frame between 10 and 2. And that's, so I'm just specifically looking for a 4-hour half-time procedural nurse to fill that need. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, when does it end? I mean, I mean, I'd never heard of all these procedures being done in the school system before.
I'm going to tell you this, Carrie. Unfortunately, we have more children that are coming to us with more needs. Diabetics, more children with diabetes. There are more children with tube feedings, allergies, and so forth. That have, I'm looking out to our principals. They have more students that are coming to them with more needs. Some of them are medically fragile because we do have a number of students who have, many medical needs, but we are providing their education, and we need to do it in a safe manner. So when does it end? I honestly, I think what we need to do is reflect upon our healthcare system in our district and look at ways that we can have that consistent care. And I know that we have been talking about ways to restructure that our health care system.
I understand continuity of care, and that makes a lot of sense to me, just in general about medical things. But what I'm asking you, I guess, to be more specific, is what does the law require us to do?
Take care of our students' medical needs. And that must be done. The law says it must be done by a registered
So what it means,
nurse.
when does it end? What I'm saying is, I'm not a doctor, so
I'll give an example. In some cases, students who are diabetic, for instance, when they get to a certain age where they can self-monitor,
Yes.
then they don't, maybe that student doesn't need a daily check with a nurse. And maybe that student in, I don't know what age, when they may need to go see the nurse when their numbers are up or numbers are down. But they don't necessarily need a daily check. At a younger age, those students who are diabetic, they go and see the nurse every day at usually a certain window, a certain time, either before lunch, after lunch, to get their blood sugar checked, to make sure that their insulin's where it should be. We have students, again, who need to be tube fed. Maybe as they get older and their medical condition changes, that restriction changes. So it's all based on what their doctor tells us that we must do while the student's in school.
We are following doctor's orders. Every one of these children has doctor's orders that we need to
I mean,
follow.
it surprises me, there's probably some homes in which a child couldn't be tube fed because they wouldn't know how to do it, right? So then.
Well, they had
Then they have nursing care. I mean, and we do have children who we've served before that have 24-hour nursing care.
But when they're in our care, they're our responsibility.
Okay, so any other questions? So do we have a consensus then to bring this back as an action item?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Carrie. Next, we have the DHS Assistant Parole Director Differential Funding Request. This is an action item that the Board of Education reinstate funding for an Assistant Parole Director Differential .07 at Dekalb High School.
So,
We have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Howard Solomon,
Yes, sir.
Jeff Albert,
Yes.
Carrie Malat,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Valerie Penny Hernandez.
Next, we have the DCTA Letter of Agreement Differentials. This is an action item that the Board of Education approve the Letter of Agreement approving the identified differentials for the 2017-2018 school year. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Jeff Albert,
Yes.
Carrie Malat,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Valerie Penny Hernandez.
Yes.
Howard Solomon.
yes.
And then the meeting will be adjourned. All in favor?